Something shifted in the global music conversation, but the institutions supposed to track these shifts haven't caught up yet. While headlines continue painting Asian pop music as a single-country phenomenon, a parallel movement has been building momentum without waiting for permission. No major label machinery. No billion-dollar infrastructure. Just artists, culture, and communities rewriting the rules about what global success actually requires. This isn't speculation. This is what's happening right now, measured not in trending moments but in sold-out venues, international collaborations, and fan movements that rival anything the industry has seen before. And yet, when major platforms gather to celebrate Asian music excellence, the same story repeats. One nation dominates the stage while extraordinary talent from across the continent watches from the margins. That imbalance isn't just unfair. It's inaccurate. And it's time the industry reconciled what award shows celebrate with what's actually unfolding across Asia's music landscape. Quick reminder, if you value analysis that goes beyond surface-level trends, support this work by engaging with this content. We don't chase viral moments. We explain what actually matters. The elephant in every award ceremony. For over a decade, Korean pop music has commanded global attention with undeniable force. Groups whose names need no introduction have topped charts, sold out stadium tours, and fundamentally changed how Western markets perceive Asian artists. That achievement deserves recognition. The infrastructure built, the barriers broken, the representation gained, all of it matters. But representation that only reflects one nation isn't complete representation. It's a spotlight that illuminates brilliantly but narrowly. Asia spans dozens of countries, hundreds of languages, and countless musical traditions evolving into contemporary forms. Yet when awards ceremonies designed to celebrate Asian artistry convene, the guest lists, nominee pools, and stage time tell a strikingly narrow story. The message, whether intended or not, becomes clear: global-ready talent emerges from one specific system, one particular approach, one nation's formula. That message is false. And the evidence proving it false has been building steadily, deliberately, undeniably. What gets overlooked when only one story gets told? While Korean acts dominated international headlines, something else was happening. Artists from the Philippines were building their own path to global recognition, using different methods, facing different obstacles, and achieving results that should have made industry gatekeepers reconsider their assumptions. Filipino pop P-pop wasn't trying to replicate the Korean model. It was forging its own identity, rooted in cultural authenticity rather than industrial replication. Groups like SB19 didn't emerge from massive entertainment conglomerates with decade-long training systems. They started with limited resources, skeptical investors, and no guaranteed pathway to success. What they had instead was skill, discipline, and something the industry often underestimates: genuine cultural voice. Other acts followed similar trajectories. Artists like Geo brought distinct musicality. Groups like MNL48 built dedicated followings. Each demonstrated that talent doesn't require a specific national infrastructure to reach international audiences. It requires excellence, authenticity, and direct connection with communities hungry for music that reflects experiences beyond one cultural perspective. These artists didn't wait for major award shows to validate them. They built careers anyway. But validation from institutional platforms still matters, and not for the reasons critics might assume. Why recognition from established platforms still carries weight? Awards aren't just symbolic. They function as amplification systems within an industry that operates on attention economics. When major platforms recognize an artist, several mechanisms activate simultaneously. First, exposure expands. New audiences who navigate music discovery through curated lists, award show performances, and industry endorsements suddenly encounter artists they'd never seen before. That discovery moment matters because it breaks through algorithmic bubbles and geographical limitations. Second, validation compounds. Industry professionals, booking agents, festival organizers, collaboration partners use award recognition as a filtering mechanism. Not because awards equal quality, but because they signal that an artist has crossed certain professional thresholds. Fair or not, that perception opens doors. Why recognition from established platforms still carries weight? Awards aren't just symbolic. They function as amplification systems within an industry that operates on attention economics. When major platforms recognize an artist, several mechanisms activate simultaneously. First, exposure expands. New audiences who navigate music discovery through curated lists, award show performances, and industry endorsements suddenly encounter artists they'd never seen before. That discovery moment matters because it breaks through algorithmic bubbles and geographical limitations. Second, validation compounds. Industry professionals, booking agents, festival organizers, collaboration partners use award recognition as a filtering mechanism. Not because awards equal quality, but because they signal that an artist has crossed certain professional thresholds. Fair or not, that perception opens doors. Third, infrastructure follows. Tour routing becomes easier. Media coverage increases. Investment conversations shift from convince me to let's discuss terms. The business of music, not just the art of it, operates more smoothly when institutional recognition exists. For artists already building global careers independently, these benefits accelerate momentum rather than create it. But acceleration matters. Resources freed up from constant justification can redirect toward creative development, larger productions, broader reach. That's why the current award landscape doesn't just frustrate fans. It creates tangible barriers for non-Korean Asian artists who've already proven their global viability but still face institutional skepticism. The problem with pattern recognition that stops recognizing new patterns. Industry decision-makers operate on pattern recognition. A decade of Korean pop dominating global Asian music exports created a mental model: successful Asian music. Following a specific blueprint. Extensive training systems. Major label backing. Particular production aesthetics. Korean language or carefully managed English integration. That pattern recognition served a purpose. It helped industry professionals identify and invest in a proven model. But pattern recognition becomes a problem when it blinds observers to different patterns emerging simultaneously. P-pop doesn't follow the Korean model, but that doesn't make it less professional or globally viable. The differences are fundamental and intentional. Filipino artists often perform in Tagalog or Filipino English, embracing linguistic authenticity rather than broad market calculation. The lyrical content reflects specific cultural experiences, daily life in Manila, Filipino emotional expression, local storytelling traditions. Without diluting those elements for perceived international accessibility. The musical fusion blends global pop structures with Filipino rhythmic traditions, creating something that sounds contemporary and culturally specific simultaneously. Most significantly, the artist development model differs entirely. Rather than years in corporate training systems before debut, many P-pop artists develop through more independent pathways. They train rigorously, but the structure emphasizes artistic autonomy alongside technical skill. They face resource limitations that Korean trainees don't, but those constraints breed creativity and self-sufficiency. None of this makes P-pop better or worse than K-pop. It makes it different. And that difference deserves recognition on its own terms, not dismissal for failing to match a template it never intended to follow. The community element that changes everything. Here's where the story shifts from interesting to significant. P-pop's rise hasn't been artist-driven or industry-driven. It's been community-driven in ways that fundamentally challenge how the music industry understands audience engagement. Take the fan bases. Groups like SB19 built their following through a partnership model that goes far beyond traditional artist-fan relationships. Their supporters, known as ATN, didn't just consume content passively. They became active participants in career building. These fans organize coordinated streaming campaigns to boost chart positions and platform visibility. They mobilize voting drives for awards and recognition opportunities, treating each campaign like a strategic operation. They create and distribute promotional content, often with production value that rivals official materials. They translate songs, interviews, and content into multiple languages, expanding accessibility. They even fund billboards, trending campaigns, and celebratory projects without label coordination. This isn't new behavior. K-pop fandoms pioneered many of these tactics. But P-pop communities demonstrate that this level of organization and dedication exists beyond Korea. And more importantly, they prove it can flourish without the massive corporate machinery that typically supports such movements. That matters because it challenges a fundamental industry assumption that global-scale fan engagement requires industrial-scale artist management. P-pop shows that organic community building, when combined with genuine artist excellence, creates comparable results through entirely different means. Yet this grassroots power rarely factors into award consideration. Voting categories might acknowledge fan enthusiasm, but the core recognition, nominations, performance slots, major awards still flows primarily toward artists backed by established systems. The institutions haven't adjusted their evaluation criteria to account for new models of success. What the numbers actually show. Strip away subjective judgments about musical quality. Look only at measurable indicators of global reach and professional achievement. P-pop groups, particularly SB19, have accumulated credentials that should place them firmly in award consideration alongside any Asian act. International touring, completed, including sold-out performances in major US markets where Asian artists typically struggle to draw crowds. Cross-border collaborations, established, working with international artists and producers without label facilitation. Streaming numbers, significant, reaching audiences across multiple continents without major label playlist placement advantages. Media coverage. Expanding, earning features in international publications that typically focus on established acts. These aren't soft metrics or fan enthusiasm measurements. These are the same professional benchmarks the industry uses to evaluate Korean acts. The difference is what conclusions get drawn from identical achievements. When Korean groups hit these marks, the industry narrative frames it as inevitable, the system working is designed. When Filipino groups hit identical marks, it gets framed as surprising, inspiring, or punching above their weight. That framing difference matters because it determines whether achievements translate into institutional recognition. The professional reality is clear: P-pop artists are already operating at global competitive levels. The institutional reality lags behind, still operating on outdated models of what Asian global success looks like. The authenticity question nobody asks correctly. Critics sometimes dismiss P-pop as derivative, borrowing K-pop's formula without bringing original value. That critique misunderstands what's actually happening on multiple levels. First, influence isn't theft. All pop music evolves through cross-pollination. Korean pop itself synthesized American R&B, hip-hop, and pop structures with Korean cultural elements. That synthesis was innovation, not imitation. Filipino pop doing similar work. Blending global pop language with Filipino cultural specificity operates under the same creative logic. Second, the execution matters more than the influence. P-pop choreography doesn't just copy Korean formations. It integrates Filipino movement traditions and creates distinct visual storytelling. P-pop vocal arrangements don't mimic Korean production choices. They emphasize different tonal qualities, harmonization approaches, and emotional expression styles rooted in Filipino musical traditions. Most importantly, the cultural content is entirely distinct. When SB19 performs, the stories being told, the emotions being channeled, the experiences being shared, all of it reflects Filipino life and perspective. That authenticity resonates with Filipino diaspora communities globally while also offering non-Filipino audiences genuine cultural exchange rather than cultural tourism. Authenticity isn't about avoiding influence. It's about transformation, taking inspiration, and creating something that speaks with your own voice. P-pop does that work consistently, and the global response from diverse audiences proves it succeeds. The infrastructure gap that still exists. Acknowledging P-pop's artistic and professional achievements doesn't mean ignoring real obstacles these artists still face. 3 significant barriers remain. Visibility gaps persist. Despite growing international awareness, vast audiences still don't know P-pop exists. If you don't know something exists, you can't discover it, support it, or recognize it for awards. That awareness gap isn't the artist's fault. It's a resource allocation problem. Funding disparities remain stark. Korean entertainment companies invest millions into music video production, global marketing campaigns, and world tour infrastructure before groups debut. Filipino artists often work with budgets measuring in thousands, not millions. They compensate through creativity and resourcefulness, but the resource gap still constrains how quickly they can scale operations. Perception challenges continue. Industry gatekeepers still default to viewing non-Korean Asian pop as emerging or developmental rather than established and competitive. That perception affects everything from media coverage priority to award nomination consideration to collaboration opportunity flow. These barriers are real, but they're not insurmountable. They're also not artistic problems, they're institutional problems. P-pop artists have proven they can deliver world-class musicianship, compelling performances, and deep audience connection. What they need isn't more time to develop. What they need is for institutions to catch up to the reality already unfolding. Why this moment matters specifically. Timing creates opportunity. Several factors converge right now that make this the optimal moment for institutional recognition to finally match artistic reality. Digital platforms have permanently leveled access barriers. An artist in Manila can reach listeners in Mexico City, Lagos, or Stockholm with the same ease as an artist in Seoul. Platform algorithms care about engagement metrics, not national origin or label size. That democratization means P-pop no longer needs industry gatekeepers' permission to build global audiences, they've already done it. Audience appetite for cultural diversity in pop music has expanded. Listeners increasingly seek authentic cultural voices rather than homogenized global product. P-pop offers exactly that. Contemporary pop that sounds globally current while remaining culturally specific. That combination resonates with audiences tired of cultural appropriation or generic internationalism. The success proof points have accumulated. Years ago, skeptics could reasonably question whether independent Filipino artists could sustain global careers. That question is answered. SB19 tours internationally. The music streams globally. The fan base operates across continents. The professional infrastructure exists. Skepticism no longer has